Here's a tough question that almost no one has the answer to. Why do most digital transformation efforts fail? In this video, I'm going to show you how to leverage technology or anything else you need to actually get to the solutions or the end results you want for your business. My name is Robert Indrieš, and I want to show you, after 14 years of experience and managing over 11 companies, the exact step-by-step way and methodology we have used both for ourselves and for all of our clients on how to digitally transform successfully. The methodology itself is condensed within 7 specific questions that I'm going to tell you about today, and we're going to go into each one of these. Let's look at the perspective that most people have, which is flawed, and hence why the end result is not what they want. Most people believe that technology within itself will solve their issues. However, the vast majority of tools out there you will find are nothing other than glorified to-do lists. What we've seen people do is that they take all of their to-dos and all of their work and all of their projects from one tool because their business isn't working and they believe the software is to blame, and they take all of that information and they copy paste it into a new tool, right? They go from Basecamp to Jira, or they go from Jira to whatever else they want to use. And when that happens, they sooner or later find that they will have the exact same issues with the new tool that they had with the old one, because again, the tool itself does not solve the issue. So now let's see how we can correctly digitally transform any part of your business, whether that's a small issue that you want to solve or whether that's a global issue across 5,000 employees. It doesn't matter. The same principles apply, and we're going to start with the very first question. Question number 1 is, what issue or issues are you actually trying to solve? Some solutions can help solve multiple issues at the same time. If you're doing this for the first time, you can write down all of the issues you have in your business. For the purpose of this video, we're going to tackle one specific issue and take it through all of the questions, so it's very easy for you to follow along, and then you can apply this for any part of your business. So let's start with one example. The example can be maybe that people aren't following standard procedures, right? You have a very clear procedure defined, but people aren't following that. So that is the issue. So now let's go to step 2. Step 2 is important because it puts, let's say, an exclamation mark on why we're doing this. Why is this important for us? So the question is, how is this issue affecting us? It's a very important question. You have to ask it every single time because it tells you the extent and scale of the problem. In the example that we're following today of people not following standard procedures, the issues that it creates, even hypothetically, are very, very clear to understand. Number 1, there is a lack of consistency across the deliverables that we have, whether those deliverables are, pancakes that are very different shapes and sizes or very different tapes, or whether that's marketing services or anything else you do, right? If you have a difference in the deliverable, that can lead to issues because now you're not consistent. And then number 2, people can make more mistakes because there's no consistency, there's no standard way of doing things. That means there's a higher chance of mistakes being made. Both of these can lead to losses in time because you need to do things over and over again. It can lead to losses in money and capital because again, you need to pay for those individuals or they ruin certain items. Or number 3, it can be in loss of reputation, right? Or loss of clients, because if someone comes to you and expects the same high quality marketing service or the same high quality pancake or sandwich or whatever, and then they never know what they're gonna get at the end of the day, at one point they might say, okay, no, I just don't want to keep coming here because I need a marketing agency that I actually can count on every single month. They do what they need to do, etc., etc. From there, once we understand how this is affecting us, we go to point number 3, or to step number 3, which is, why is this an issue? Or another way, why is this issue occurring once, twice, 10 times, or however many times? And even though we have questions at all of these steps, we call them steps because they mandate you to actually do work. In this case, we want to find out, we want to seek to understand. So the actual action item here is for you to look in and see, how is this created? And you will find that in most cases, based on the example that we've given previously, people aren't actually reading or rereading the standard operating procedure every single time they do the task. This is because maybe it's in a Google Doc somewhere and they don't have the Google Doc open whilst they're following the task, or whatever other reason there is. But this is the step in which you seek to understand. Look in, do your due diligence, and see why this is happening. Something, for example, that we have been doing for many, many years is that we've realized that all of our clients had issues with either defining their SOPs, defining their procedures, or making sure people actually follow those procedures, or a combination of both. That's why we created Alvanda, which is basically the ultimate procedure guiding system that you can imagine in the world, where you can define your procedures and people can actually follow them whilst they are working on the task. So typically that doesn't happen, and so this is a common issue that we see. Moving on from there, let's go to the fourth question, which is, what is the end result we actually want? So in a perfect world, if we take this example, the end result is 100% consistency, right? All deliverables are the same every single time, and 0% mistakes being made on the job, on the work, and so on and so forth. So again, this might be, a little bit utopic to have 100% consistency and 0% mistakes. However, what you want in this specific example to look at is, why were those mistakes made? Because if, for example, a mistake was made because that person had a very rough night, their child was sick, and they couldn't sleep all night, and they were making mistakes, not because of the SOPs or not because anything you're working on, but literally they just couldn't focus, then that's a completely different scenario and has nothing to do with what we're working on, with the issue that we're working on right now. Because at the end of the day, that person was incapable at that point in time to do their work correctly, and maybe the solution there is for them to take a day off, or in general for them to take days off when they are in certain contexts. So again, we don't want to extrapolate to something that's inhumane, that can't happen. However, we can have, for one specific item, let's say this is the issue as we've described it until now. Okay, for this specific issue, we want a 100% success rate. If anything happens in the future, we will solve that at that point in time. Moving on from there, we can go to the fifth question, which is, what can we put in place to achieve the desired result that we actually want? This is the step or the question where very helpful for you to seek guidance from others that have done this or that have been there, done that over and over again. You can find people on YouTube, you can find help in books. We have books on the subject, we have courses on the subject, we have an entire tool, as I said previously, where the tool itself helps you define everything and helps people follow them. We can link to everything below. However, this is where you put in the effort of figuring out what a solution would actually look like for your specific instance. For us, in the example that we had the same problem a few years ago as well, but now we just use Alvanda. All of our SOPs are within the tool, and you'll see if you start using it that you can, as a manager, define everything step by step, if this then that. And then when someone follows a task, they just see step 1, this is what you need to do. They do that step 1, then step 2, step 3, and so on, and everything is in the same tool that you define the SOP is the same tool that you actually use to follow it, which is very different than having a Google Doc or a sheet or a pretty PDF with boxes and arrows and then expecting people to follow that and to look at that every single time when they do their work. That is where it was breaking off for us, and so that's the example that we're using here today. Obviously, if you have another issue or something else in the business, you need to focus on that one concrete issue. For example, let's say one of the issues you have if you're a bakery is that the ingredients that you get aren't the highest quality. So then your solution here is to either search for new vendors or to discuss with the vendor to tell them that, hey, I expect higher level of quality, and you can negotiate different terms and so on and so forth. So whatever the issue is, the solution will be based on that issue that you're trying to solve. From there, we go to the sixth question, which is a combination of 3 questions. How often, and for how long are we going to measure success, right? So many people fail to define these 3 items. And I believe that is one of the main, if I would say 50% of the issues, or let's not exaggerate, 30% of the issues in digital transformation is people don't define these 3 things. So in our example, You can say, how are we going to measure success? Well, let's say we take 10 random deliverables, right? Literally once, depends on how often people give these deliverables, once a day, once a week, once a month, right? But once in a certain period, let's say once a week, we check 10 random deliverables of the same type for this week. And from there, you define how are you going to check, or how are you going to measure success by checking the deliverables 10 at a time. How often, that's weekly, and for how long. We can define that as, for example, for 3 months. So we're going to keep doing this for 3 months. Or how I prefer to do it is I prefer to keep checking until it's 100% done. So in this case, what I would set for this example is keep checking until 10 consecutive checks of 10 each. So that means 100 deliverables are as per our standard operating procedure. So if the last 100 consecutive deliverables were delivered correctly, you can basically consider this done, right? If you don't want to be as, let's say, intense as I am, you can put 30, right? So 3 consecutive weeks at least. Everything has to go perfectly well, and then you're all good. But 100 for me comes as almost a full quarter of no mistakes being made. And if an entire quarter we manage to do good, I know that if we will have an issue in the future, it's probably because of something else and not because of the solution that we've implemented for that specific issue. The final question that I highly recommend you take very seriously is, how are we going to reward and celebrate success? Because at the end of the day, you have a management team that wants to be rewarded for finding good solution. You have contractors or employees that want to feel rewarded because now they're following procedure and now they're doing better work. And so define all of that for yourself, whatever that looks like for you. It can be, $100 gift cards from Amazon, that you send everyone involved for, having an amazing quarter where no mistakes were made. Or it can be an additional day off, or it can be tickets to some event or some concert or whatever, right? Whatever your people want to feel that, hey, I was rewarded. I did amazingly good on this project, on this, initiative that we have internally or that we had. So I will get a reward for that. It can be monetary, it can be anything else you guys want. So that is the 7-step process, 7 questions that you need to answer, and at every point of this process, you need to do actual work. The tool itself, the software, the whatever it is just that. It's just a tool, right? Do not expect technology to solve your solutions. Technology is part of the solution that you are going to implement. If you have anything else, we're here. We want to help. Wish you an amazing year and speak to you soon.